Ad blocking, is it here to stay or a bump in the road? So as part of the panel, we've got Roy Carty, Inbal Lavi, Zach Abramowitz, and Ariel Krisspel.
Hi, I'm Roy Carty. I'm the CMO of Shine. If some of you have read about us, we are a network-level ad blocker. That means we work with mobile carriers to put our technology in their data centers and make the ads disappear, both in mobile web and within apps, right before they reach the device.
I'm Inbal Lavi. I'm the CEO of WebPulse Holdings and WebPulse. Basically, we are a performance marketing company that serve both as a publisher and an advertiser.
Hi, my name is Ariel Krisspel. I'm the CMO of Uponit, which creates publishers' solutions for major problems with our flagship product in the anti-ad blocking.
Okay. So since I don't have a whole list of questions up front, we'll get to the basic and we'll start from there. As a normal user, I don't use ad blocking, although probably my browsers do. So from the start, what is everybody going to do regarding the ad blocking? Are we pro, con? Do we work around it? You know, basically, from your perspective, what's the best way for us to still get our word out without really upsetting people?
Well, first of all, let's take it about a year and a half, almost 2 years back. So the issue of ad blocking, which I think was mentioned in at least one of the 2 presentations so far, was not on anybody's radar. It was somewhere outside on the side. People knew and were aware about it, but not in any discussable sense or in any way that was engaged by ad tech, neither advertisers, the ad tech themselves, or the publishers. So 2 years later, I don't believe that there's a publisher in the world right now that is not aware of the situation and some of them are at least trying to engage with the problem as they see it. We, Shine, don't see this as a problem. We see this as a natural evolution of publishing, whether the web or in apps, where consumers are signaling very clearly that they have extreme discontent with the way online advertising works. Anybody who expects this problem to disappear is completely irrational. There are over 250 million people actively using ad blocking, mostly on desktop. With our help, they're going to have it more and more on mobile. And the idea is that consumers do not want to steal content. Consumers, that is not the motivation of consumers. Anybody who thinks that, again, is not dealing rationally with the problem. People feel distressed, abused, dissatisfied. They feel advertising is intrusive. Very kind of natural things, unsafe. They believe advertising is malicious. In fact, it is. And we are helping them protect themselves. I understand that is very, very uncomfortable to a lot of people sitting in this room. But this is, instead of a threat, this should be treated as an opportunity. The fellow before us in his presentation mentioned ad blocking and said that they're trying to achieve formats that are less dissatisfying, I want to say. I think that's a good start. I think making audio just load on hover is not exactly the right solution, but at least there's movement. So ultimately, what we're going to see in the next few years is a radical change in the way online advertising works. Anything that you guys know right now as best practices are going to change, and it's going to be a very, very interesting dynamic that will occur between consumers that finally have a say. They're not just being monetized, they have a say. And publishers who have the opportunity to re-engage with their audience.
I can say that I can definitely understand the motivation behind ad blockers and the fact that consumers would like to protect themselves from very intrusive advertising. I'm not a prophet, so obviously I can't tell how big this will become. Obviously, it has grown significantly over the past few years and definitely over the past year. But what I can say is that I'm pretty positive that online advertising will not go away. So what I'm assuming will happen is probably a couple of directions. Firstly, I'm assuming that big newspapers and other online publishers will find new ways of monetizing traffic, whether it's subscriptions models, whether it's even paying users in order to view ads, which is something that has started to happen. On the other hand, I do believe that native advertising will indeed become much more significant. So advertising will not go away, but rather change shape and form and create new ad units as the ad happened in the past. So this is the way I see the world going, and obviously we'll see that happening probably more and more in the future.
Although I might seem as against Roy's claims here, his claims are good. Looking back 10 years ago, publishers have started with some non-intrusive ads, banner ads in every site. But through our pursuit of maximizing revenues and making more money from those ads, we've made a mistake. We have pushed too many intrusive ads into the users. And when the users had an option, they chose to block all ads without thinking about the consequences. It started with an Adblock extension on mobile on desktop browsers. It expanded to mobile app, which is a browser embedded with Adblock. And there is even an app requires root access that enables you to block all ads inside all the apps in your mobile device. And the next step will be entering Adblock inside the career level. We are talking about between 20 to 40% of revenues from each publisher going wasted because of Adblock. And soon, we have already started to see that publishers will block the entire access to their site to users who can't see ads. We've seen that in Forbes, Wired, The Guardian, even Yahoo email tried this before. And we must find a solution for this problem. There must be a common ground. And here is when Uponit comes in. We have created a common ground between publishers and Adblock users, while helping publishers to regain their lost revenues with non-intrusive native ads, and enabling the users to surf and see their free content without being blocked, and then Adblock unblocks the block, etc., etc.
Okay. Because you won't mention native advertising, and that's going to come up later in a different panel. But from your perspective, will people really see native advertising differently? Will they see it as just like reading whatever the text in the post and just accept it as being part of it? Or are they still going to basically feel like there's still an advertising content?
I basically think that not showing at all that this is some kind of an advertising, while again, I am myself an advertiser and a publisher, will be misleading. I feel that it will be some kind of, a newly formed editorial. By the way, this is what we already do on our websites, because our websites are kind of review sites. So people actually come to us in order to read materials and understand about different products. So we also recommend to them about specific products. Obviously, they understand this is part of the advertising, and while it is not intrusive, people actually respond to that and respond to that well. This is also the reason why we are not really that much affected by, or hardly affected by ad blockers. So I do believe this is what will happen. I think that eventually the advertiser will have to say or show to the end user that they are promoting some kind of sponsored content or product, but they will do that in a way that will be so seamless or native that it will not be intrusive and will not have to be banner blind, as was mentioned here previously.
Anybody else? I think that she is right.
Last week, I've surfed into a big website in Israel, news website, and I think you've all heard about the new Coca-Cola campaign. I was surfing at 2 a.m. and then a full page ad, automated video with full sound came in 2 a.m. and spooked me up. And I think that those ads are the reason why Adblock is so successful as it is. This is the reason why people choose to block all ads, but there are ads that might be acceptable. You can take an example from Taboola content recommendation ads and another native ads that aren't harmful. They are just a static image with text and a link to a promoted site. Users can't opt out, and I think that's the way things are going now.
Do you have anything to add, or?
Ultimately, this is a matter of consumer trust and choice, right? And advertising in general and ad tech in particular have proven to us that it's a very slippery slope with very few people that are able to set a line in which they're willing not to cross. So whether it's native or subscriptions or any other evolution that we'll find ourselves in, that slippery slope will be there. Now, native can be a fantastic resource. We talked, the fellow that first presented showed Instagram. Instagram is one of the most tremendous marketing platforms in the world. The moment Facebook opened up the API for it, it took a big crap on it. And anybody who thinks that Instagram is maintaining the quality of the product via the advertising that it is allowing into it is I guess, too busy monetizing and less appreciating the true ability of the platform. So if there was, for example, curation, right? So Instagram is native advertising, in my opinion. If there was curation rather than API access, which is no holds barred form of funneling in advertising, I think you'd see far better user experience with monetization built in. But that's not happening. So again, it's a matter of that slippery slope. If a line can be marked, and right now, rather than ad tech marking that line, consumers are. They're saying, listen, enough's enough. We're not going to have this anymore. We're going to find ourselves with every new format in the same situation we are today. So the message is, be a little more thoughtful rather than greedy and interested in monetization. And ultimately, just the reality is that this industry is going to experience some casualties. There's a lot of folks, a lot of companies that are not going to be able to cross that bridge. That's just the reality as well. And I understand that's uncomfortable. But we cannot continue with the internet as it is to expand to a few billion more people with the monetization best practices of yesteryear.
No, that's definitely true. Historically, a lot of apps come out as freemium. You can download it, play with it, but there's ads, and all types of commercial things. And some of them are simple and some are very elaborate and make you wait 30 seconds till you can close it and all that. On the other hand, those same apps allow you to basically purchase the full app and ignore all the ads, right? So is that still an ethical way to do it? Is that still a better way to monetize those apps? Is freemium really like the bad way to do ads in general? And if we do take that view and say, well, all apps should cost money so we stop the ads, then what happens to the people selling ads?
If I may, there is no such thing as freemium. Let me be very, very clear about this. Anybody who is disillusioned that the concept of freemium exists is delusional. Freemium costs money. It costs the consumer money. When you show an ad, when an app shows an ad, whether an interstitial or video or any other sort, it's the consumer that is paying for that data. Now, that app is not marking any guideline as to what that maximum amount of data is. So in fact, when your kid, when you are, your parents, anybody who's playing a freemium game is doing so, you have no idea what the actual cost is. Shine did some research across several carriers, and we found that anywhere between 5 and 50% of a consumer's data plan is consumed by ad tech. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't like subsidizing businesses that I have no true relationship with, or certainly no very clear opt-in, okay? I don't know about you, but that's how I behave. So there's no such thing as freemium. Let's be extremely clear about that. Now, if a consumer wants to opt into that, that's fair enough, but that is not the value exchange that exists right now.
I like that answer.
Well, you don't have to like it. It's actually
No,
the truth.
I'm saying I do like it. No, it's, that's basically where
Regardless,
it's
it still exists.
It's true.
I think that there are freemium content in desktop. And when you block the entire ads in desktop and mobile apps, or in the network area, or with an extension, sites need to earn money from that content they are publishing. They will block their content to Adblock users, and you won't be able to serve to Ynet and read your articles, because Ynet...
That is a consumer choice. If a consumer chooses to adblock Ynet, the consequence can be not to see that content, and that's a perfectly valid decision on Ynet's part and the consumer's part. My money is on that being an extremely short-sighted, hysterical approach. If you look at Ynet, and actually I've spoken to people there, they absolutely hate the UX experience of their advertising. However, they're saying, well, what can we do? Some business decisions are made. Those business decisions are going to bite them in the ass. In fact, they already are. If a company as big as ours can destroy 30% of the revenue of this industry, you really didn't have a proper business model to begin with. So if that is a method of a strategy that publishers would like to choose to adopt, perfectly fine. By the way, Shine will not circumvent it, although we can. We won't. We respect that decision. But that's not the solution towards the evolution of advertising.
What do you think the revolution of advertising is?
I'm not being paid to innovate publishing. But I'll tell you this, though.
Not yet.
I'll tell you this, though. I apologize. Here's the thing. If you look historically at the publishing industry, it comes in cycles, right? So when print went to digital, hysteria, paranoia, it's the death of free speech, and what are we going to do? Well, things were fine, right? Internet was okay. Some crossed over, some died, new ones came about. Then we had social. What are we going to do? Freak out, the end of publishing. You made it through. Some died on the side, new ones came about. Then mobile, same kind of freak out. So the publishing industry, interestingly enough, is rather resilient. Now, we're talking about, for example, in this day and age, companies like Vox and BuzzFeed that didn't exist a few years ago. These are companies that are producing extremely high-quality content in any regard. In fact, they are nominated for numbers of Pulitzer Prizes. So I don't want to hear any cheap demagoguery about that's not being quality advertising as opposing, for example, the New York Times. If the New York Times has to die because its monetization practices are abusive to consumers, so be it. That's evolution. But the fact of the matter is publishing will continue. Apps will come about. New content will be created. But the monetization practices will change for sure. So do I know what the solution is? No, I'm not being paid to think about that. But I guarantee you that there are people looking at what is going on with ad blocking and are thinking this shit out. And they're going to be extremely successful as opposing to companies that put gates up.
You can show that as Adblock is doing now, you won't take money in order to display specific ads from specific ad networks?
We do not have a whitelisting policy, nor are we that company. There's a misunderstanding that every company in this space behaves like a single company in this space, which happens to be an extortionist. That is not who we are. In fact, the biggest problem this industry has was, first of all, they blamed us as extortionists. When they realized we weren't extortionists, they understood how bigger the problem is. You cannot actually pay Shine to look the other way, and the reason is quite simple. We don't come from ad tech. We don't come from publishing. We come from malware. So for us, the conversation is very, very simple. Either something is malicious or it is not. If it is malicious, that's it. You're done. You're toast. There's no conversation with us. If you're willing to be compliant and to not be abusive, then we can have a conversation. And in fact, by the way, lots of ad tech companies have reached out to Shine. Some of them have asked, how do we pay you guys off? It's not, those were very short conversations. Others, though, including the very big ones, are talking to us, figuring out how do we find a way where consumers aren't abused and safety and transparency are maintained. So those are the key. My monetization model, or Shine's monetization model, should not concern you.
Somebody asked, what's the model?
Yes, I get that question often. It shows a lot of, well, it's funny. No, it absolutely is, because it's funny how the one company who is not abusing consumers in this room is being questioned as to what is their business model. That's what I find ironic. Sorry? No, we're giving consumers the choice to protect themselves. Sorry? Consumers. Just one at a time, otherwise I can't respond. Happy to answer questions. Say again? I couldn't hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. The way that technology works, and let me clarify this, because everybody seems to look for that aha moment where they say, aha, we got you, Shine. So let me clarify it for you. You're going to... No, we are helping consumers protect themselves from the abusive practices of ad tech. When technology steal anywhere between 5 and 50% of a consumer's data plan, that is money. When they steal privacy and track them, that is abuse, and we provide that protection technology. As to how we're integrated, we put boxes in the carrier. The user opts into that service as they would be opting in to cloud storage or antivirus services. The consumer opt-in and user engagement is directly with Shine. So anybody who's concerned about net neutrality, you can rest assured that's not an issue. I am not stealing. No, in fact, I am the only person in this room who is not stealing money.
All right.
I think you would need a very honest look at your business to answer that question. Say again?
Roy.
We have an expiration? Well, good luck to you.
Yeah. All right. We'd like to try and bring it back to this side of the stage, and you're welcome to come and talk to Roy right after the session. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to spend the next 4 hours with you.
Actually, I have a day planned with my daughter, but anybody who'd like to email me, it's roy@getshine.com, or on Twitter, I'm Roy, R-O-I. Feel free, I answer all questions.
All right. Trying to get away from going to prison for sending ads to people. So, obviously, certain countries have already passed various privacy laws. And some of the ad campaigns and some of the way ads are done violate those in different ways. And obviously, people avoid some of those countries, right? But at what point do we even believe that at some point all the governments, or maybe CERN, the owners of the internet, are going to sit there and say, enough is enough and we just don't want it at all? Do we think that that is a possibility?
I definitely don't see it happening. I think, as Roy actually mentioned, the evolution of advertising has occurred across the different channels, has also happened online. So I definitely don't see it going away. I definitely don't see, Western governments prohibiting advertising. I do think that there will be more and more regulations protecting the consumers from actually being exposed to advertising that they do not want to receive, or from invading privacy, as already happened, with all the cookie regulations in the UK, for instance, which is okay. That's actually a good thing, I think, because if you do accept very specific T's and C's, and if you do actually go and download that freemium application, knowing that you will get advertising and the other option is actually to pay, it's fair enough. It's the user's consent, and the same as they need to opt into Shine or any other ad blocker. If they do intend and have no problem with getting content in exchange for advertising, that's fine. So I do not see it going away anytime soon. Okay. Or we will all be out of business, but hopefully that will not happen.
Ariel, you have anything on that or no? Okay.
To that question, so
Okay.
no, there will be no regulatory body that will end advertising. However, I believe we're going to see a lot more regulatory work as it relates to the transition between what is telecommunications regulation as it relates to the consumer and stuff that has to do more with I want to say, so for example, between the FCC and the FTC as it relates to this type of stuff. The thing also with governments and regulatory bodies, and this goes to why Shine is also kind of fairly scary to the industry, is that regulatory bodies, governmental regulatory bodies, are not smart enough or quick enough to respond to the behavior of ad tech. So the ability, for example, and here we have somebody on this panel who is actively working to circumvent a consumer decision. A regulatory body cannot grasp the sophistication or the speed of technological innovation as it relates to ad tech consumer abuse. That's why when you have a company as motivated as Shine is to protect consumers, as ad tech is motivated to monetize consumers, that equilibrium changes radically. And for the first time, you have a company that is aggressively active at helping consumers protect themselves, and that is a game changer. So don't expect regulatory bodies to be able to impact this. Expect commercial entities such as Shine to make the difference.
I think that each consumer has the ability, has to have the ability to opt out. And if he sees an ad that he won't accept to see and he won't like, or the position of the ad is harmful or intrusive, so he can opt out. That's okay. But how much time it will take that careers to put Shine as opt out instead of opt in, and
we are opt-in. We just signed about a month and a half ago. We announced an agreement with the 3 Group that would bring our service to over 30 million people across Europe, all opt-in. So problem solved.
No, what he's asking is what will happen if I want to opt out after I opted into Shine.
You could just as easily opt out as you can opt in. There is no monkey business.
I'm thinking 5 years from now, I'm seeing the
yes,
careers.
you will be able to opt in and out of Shine.
I'm seeing the careers earning enough money from the data saving and taking a step further, putting Shine to opt in by default.
So here's the thing, and you need to understand this very clearly. You are thinking as if we are ad tech, and we are not. So imagine the reality is, as I described it, we are not an ad tech company, and the fact that we sit on a pipe and have the ability to look at every consumer's traffic, behavior, activity, and web history is there, but we do not abuse it. What if we actually are who we say we are? And we're not going to abuse our position, and we're going to be full opt-in and full protective of consumer choice. What happens then? Think about that, because that's the reality. There is no monkey business. I know that's uncomfortable. We won't extort, you can't pay us off, and we won't abuse our position technologically or dynamically.
Maybe we should have called this the Avengers, Civil War. No, we're not quite behind schedule. We still have about 10 minutes for this session. Just out of curiosity, does the ad side and ad blocking, right? Many people are wearing Fitbits and wearables and other types of clothing that's going to be much more able to do whatever you want to call it at some point and give people more. As people want to extend that, Levi's, let's say, makes jeans that are going to be able to show and do more things with them. And are people going to be okay with that when they buy the item itself, whether it's a shirt or something like that? And are they going to have to basically sign in and agree to let the advertising occur? Has anybody looked at that level of it yet? Or did I just stump everybody?
Listen, it's a slippery slope where ad tech believes there's an opportunity to monetize, it will go there and there will be no boundary. So if it's your jeans or anywhere else or any kind of device, absolutely it's going to be in every device. It's already happening. Consumers need the ability to say no. And that choice has to be respected. If it's not respected, there will be consequences, as there already are. There are already publishers out there experiencing 30% declines in revenue. There's good reason for that. That revenue didn't actually exist there in the first place. In fact, we haven't even discussed the subject of ad fraud. In the US alone, let's just discuss that for a moment. I know, again, you don't like me, but let's discuss that for a moment. $7.2 billion this year alone in ad fraud alone in the US. $7.2 billion. If this was a banking scandal worth $7.2 billion, it would be in every headline. But when it's ad tech, it's no big deal. Now, this fraud is actually between the business parties, right? Usually the advertiser is being defrauded, by other entities. But here's the thing. You can say, well, it's sort of, listen, Roy, it's a victimless crime. What do you care? Well, I care because that fraud cannot exist, cannot take place without the consumer being involved. And that consumer is not opting in to $7.2 billion of ad fraud. And if you don't believe that a consumer has the right to take themselves out of that equation, then we have a fundamental disagreement. Do you want your child to be part of criminal activity? It's criminal activity in the rest of the world, but not in ad tech. No, I'm not Robin Hood, not at all. I'm a capitalist, and I would like to make a lot of money in a very particular way, a way that rubs you the wrong way, but it's a way that is respectful to consumers. No, I explained that. I'm not a thief.
But I would comment that ad fraud actually is something that ad tech has been really working hard on cleaning, and we all know what's been happening. Obviously, it damaged some businesses, but I think that obviously who's the ones who are giving added value and not just selling fraud at a markup or something like that have not been damaged. So I definitely think that, obviously there's fraud everywhere, but the ad tech industry is taking measures against it. So I think it's very, black or white to say there's fraud or not, but that's not.
Do you think that the behavior of ad tech as it relates to fraud is identical to the banking industry's relationship to fraud as it relates to their consumers? Do you think they take it as seriously?
I think they are taking it seriously.
As seriously?
I am not a banker, and I'm not into the banking industry, so I cannot obviously compare that. But what I can see from my point of view is that all the big players in edtech are definitely taking it seriously. We have seen what happened in AppNexus and in other very big players, and eventually it is costing them.
Let's discuss AppNexus. Fantastic, right? September of 2015, they came out, said, listen, we did some house cleaning. We apologize, but 63% of our traffic was fraudulent. 63%, extraordinary amount, 63%. They corrected that about a month ago. Do you want to take a guess what that 63 number was corrected to? Take a wild guess. I bet you don't know, so you can guess, because some of these folks might. Take a guess, throw a number.
What, how much more ad?
It wasn't 63%, they corrected that number.
I assume it was higher.
How much?
Well, probably another 20%.
90% of AppNexus traffic was fraudulent. In any other industry, that business is gone, is dead, is shot in the head. You've lost any integrity and reliability to your business partners and certainly the consumers that you are serving traffic to or serving ads to. Not in ad tech. Not only that, their president is on the board of the IAB. Things are changing not fast enough, and they're changing not by the choice of ad tech. I am absolutely familiar, which only goes to show how consumers need the ability to protect themselves. Really? So I'm curious, yeah, good luck with those. Applause. So let me ask you, when Forbes put out their gate and asked consumers to take off their ad blockers so they can see the content that they were served, 100,000 people were served malware. Do you believe that Forbes should pay anything? Do you think there should be consequences? No. That's just, well, an oopsie. That oopsie is unacceptable as Shine sees the world. It's not a trend. You're absolutely right.
true.
We're not, and again, coming from malware, not at all. I want you to change your ways. You're mostly doing that to ensure that your advertisers get guarantees, which in fact they have pushed you for. In fact, ad tech has had to deal with viewability only because advertisers refuse to pay anymore. This industry doesn't change by choice. It changes only when it sees revenue decline.
Right.
So I'm going to agree with you somewhat that there is change. And yes, that change, I have to say, was to a great degree caused by what Shine is doing in the world in the last 18 to 24 months. This conversation is happening because of what we're doing, and I believe that there is good happening, but it's not fast enough. And if we
All right.
disappear, then you go back to your usual ways.
All right, just so we have a few minutes left. Hang on.
Absolutely. I'll answer. It's actually, that's a good question, probably the best that was asked yet. So to clarify something, Shine is not against online advertising. We're against abusive online advertising. If we are able to help consumers opt in to a safe online ad experience, we would be happy to do so. And in fact, ad tech, certain parties in ad tech are talking to us about how could that happen. But you have to understand, though, asking that question and hearing my answer, that's going to take a fundamental change in the behavior of this business. And that's perfectly fine, that's evolution. But yes, I believe consumers want to see advertising. A lot of them, not everyone, but a lot of them. But they're not willing to be abused by it. So the question is, where is that line established and how is it guaranteed? And ad tech cannot guarantee it on its own. There is no law, there is no order, and there are no consequences. Those things have to change in order to ensure that this business doesn't implode and does continue.
All right, cool. Can I hold that for a minute? Someone in front here wanted to ask what's probably the last question because we have to get off stage. No, not you, the person right here.
Sorry. Okay, so lots of questions. So first of all, send your CV our way. If you're in malware, we'd be happy to talk to you if you're looking for a good job fighting the good fight. Secondly, a lot of the data that I shared with you is actually not Shine's, it's public knowledge. The 90% is actually AppNexus's number, okay, corrected from 63%. There are a number of third parties, analyst group, completely not associated with Shine, that you can trust are, again, third parties, that's not a Shine number, that have actually done this type of research. In the UK, in fact, they've seen numbers as far as 70% of a site's data going to ads alone. The data that we can share, we've shared actually some publicly, some of, sorry? this particular research this particular research was done by an analyst group in the UK on a number of UK news publishers. Absolutely, I don't have it offhand, but yes, if you email me, I'll be happy to share it with you. It's completely public. They tested a number of UK news publisher sites, and they discovered that up around 70% of the data loaded on the page when a consumer visited on a mobile device was ad data.
That is not fraud, obviously.
Sorry?
That's what?
It's not fraud.
I didn't say
That's
fraud. He was
data.
asking a different... Yes. 5 to 50% of your data plan is being used by ad tech. It's unlimited. Fantastic. Yeah, great. That's funny when it's not your money, huh?
All right.
That is a fact. I know it's not unreasonable. It's realistic. Listen, you don't have to trust Shine. You can actually check. It's been verified. The numbers are actually... So feel free to email me, roy@getshine.com. I'll send you that report by a third party.
Okay. Right. All right. We have to cut this panel down at this point. So I apologize to everyone who's got questions in the audience. Thank you to Ariel, Inbal, and Roy. This has been a really interesting session. I'm sure people would have appreciated a longer one, but in the interest of trying to catch up to our schedule today, we're going to have to stop now. So thank you very much.
Thank you.